And thanks, Megan. And this is a Fox News alert. Welcome to Hannity. Tonight, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton participated in a presidential forum earlier tonight. Now, Clinton went first, where she was asked about a private email server scandal. And once again, well, she came up with a new excuse, spinning the fact that the FBI found it held classified information. Now we got a new excuse. Let's take a look at it.
Classified material has a header which says top secret, secret, confidential, nothing. And I will repeat this, and this is verified in the report by the Department of Justice. None of the emails sent or received by me had such a header.
As for Donald Trump, he was asked about the military under President Obama's leadership and used the opportunity to explain how he'd take a much different approach than Hillary Clinton if, in fact, he becomes the commander-in-chief.
Have you lost faith in the military commanders?
I have great faith in the military. I have great faith in certain of the commanders, certainly, but I have no faith in Hillary Clinton or the leadership. You look at what's happened, and, you know, when she comes in and starts saying, oh, I would have done this, I would have... She's been there for 30 years. We need change, Matt. We have to have it, and we have to have it fast.
Now, this comes as a brand new NBC News poll shows that Donald Trump has a 19-point lead over Hillary Clinton among registered active duty military and veteran voters. Here with reaction from the Trump Organization, Eric Trump and Donald Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. You know, I'm watching media coverage. Everybody's getting it wrong. The moment of the night was this.
I think that the decision to go to war in Iraq was a mistake. And I have said that my voting to give President Bush that authority was, from my perspective, my mistake. I also believe that it is imperative that we learn from the mistakes, like after-action reports are supposed to do. And so we must learn what led us down that path so that it never happens again.
She voted for the war. She voted to pull out early. It created a vacuum for ISIS to emerge with the financial backing of the oil that they got out of Iraq. Wow. Okay, Kellyanne, if you are the mother of one of, what, up to 5,000 people that were killed, and here's the woman that wants to be president, oh, I made a mistake. But it's important that we learn from the mistake. You have a dead child. You have a child that lost their limbs, have been disfigured as a result of her decision. Wow. I can't believe that's not front and center on every TV show tonight.
But that's not on her. Well, thanks for making it front and center in your show, and thanks for having the Trump campaign here. That's not what's on her mind. What's on her mind right now, Sean, is that she's on the verge of losing 2 consecutive presidential races in part because of her vote in the war in Iraq. She lost the primary to Barack Obama in 2008, where he pounded her about the war in Iraq vote mercilessly. And now you've got Donald Trump being able to take the superior position to her on this. He's saying, I was against the Iraq war, and I said we should have taken the oil and gotten out of there before we got out of there. And so she doesn't have a lot of ground here. And by the way, it's not like it's just the Iraq war that's part of her Secretary of State and U.S. Senate record. What about Libya? What about Syria? What about the Russia reset? What about Benghazi? And look, I think this election, Sean, we're starting to see it's complex people and very simple ideas. You either are with the 70% of Americans who say, I want to go in a different direction, I want change in leadership, or you're not. You either are with the 30% of America who think she tells the truth, or you're not. This is very simple.
At 37% of Americans, 37% negative. We're on the wrong track. I think this is key. Eric, I want to get to you in this forum tonight, and very specifically, I made a mistake. 5,000 Americans died, many more injured, then created the vacuum for ISIS. And I know people are critical. Oh, your father was critical of some of the generals. Well, I don't think Obama's listening to the generals. That's a separate issue. But seriously, 5,000 people? Oops, I'm sorry. We've got to learn from it?
We're sitting there with General Flynn tonight. It's amazing. I mean, the thing he said, it was very, very clear. We've been handcuffed. We've been totally handcuffed. We're not allowed to do our jobs. It's no different than the Border Patrol. They've been handcuffed. They can't do their jobs. And it's not just the lives, and the lives are the most tragic thing in the entire world. It is so sad. Thousands and thousands of lives. It's also trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. And I think my father's point is, what do we have to show for it at this point, Sean? I mean, what do we have to show for it? We have 3, 4, 5 different countries that are in total ruin. We have civil war. We have anarchy. We have ISIS. I mean, you can't flip on the TV anymore without seeing another ISIS attack either in our country or around the world. We have pandemonium in the Middle East. Her foreign policy destroyed the Middle East. It destabilized every single one of those nations, and it's proven to be absolutely disastrous.
And by the way,
for our
we're not
nation.
even gotten to the Iranian deal, and I thought her answer was pathetically weak because we're enabling the Iranians to spin their centrifuges with our money. They get to partner with Russia for missile defense. They get to build up their conventional arms. Then we've got Benghazi. Let's see. They denied 600 requests for security before. They denied help during because she was worried about what our military rescue team was going to wear, and they changed their uniforms 4 times. And then, of course, the lies afterwards. She told her daughter the truth, the Libyan president the truth. She told the Egyptian prime minister the truth, but she told us a lie. So, to me, there's a lot of things that came out tonight. Now, we learned something new. We got a new excuse. First, of course, we heard that, well, I neither sent nor received anything classified. I neither sent nor received anything marked classified. Now we got a new excuse tonight. Anything marked with a header. The problem is her own staff took away the header that marked it classified, and she's the only person in Washington that doesn't know that C equals classified, especially if there's no A and B before the C. That can't be alphabetical. Now, I want to play James Comey responding to Trey Gowdy's question on how Hillary Clinton lied again and again about what the excuses she gave to you, the American people, on the use of this private server.
Secretary Clinton said there was nothing marked classified on her emails, either sent or received. Was that true?
That's not true. There were a small number of portion markings on, I think, 3 of the documents.
Secretary Clinton said, I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email. There is no classified material. Was that true?
There was classified material emailed.
Secretary Clinton said she used just one device. Was that true?
She used multiple devices during the 4 years of her term as Secretary of State.
Secretary Clinton said all work-related emails were returned to the State Department. Was that true?
No, we found work-related emails, thousands, that were not returned.
Secretary Clinton said her lawyers read every one of the emails and were overly inclusive. Did her lawyers read the email content individually?
No.
Wow. She lied. She lied repeatedly. He discovered that she lied. She lied about Benghazi repeatedly. And I'm listening to her tonight, and then her saying what she did about, oh, I was a mistake.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, the ironic thing is, Sean, that Matt Lauer couldn't even get to all of Hillary Clinton's foreign policy failures because he had to spend the first 14 minutes, and I credit him for this, on her email server and then on her vote in Iraq. I mean, she was on defense from moment one, and she looked it. I don't think the Clinton campaign could be very happy with tonight's performance. I don't think it looks good for the upcoming debates, and that's not a loop that they're going to want to have rerun and rerun. And I would just remind everybody of one thing. Republicans in the past have been what I call hearing impaired when it comes to doing these hearings, and they don't do a very good job. This was masterful today by Trey Gowdy. Just lay out the
a couple of weeks ago. It was masterful.
And look, for Jim Comey, I want to remind people, that he's under oath when he testifies in Congress.
Why isn't she under oath?
Well, she's not under oath when she's at a forum. He's not under oath when he gives a press conference. And I think that you're going to see that in the ad. You're going to see that what you saw tonight in an ad this fall.
Let me just remind, and I'll get Eric's response to this, because she gave multiple answers as it relates to the email server scandal, and it kept evolving. And tonight we got a new explanation. Let's roll tape.
Laws and regulations in effect when I was Secretary of State allowed me to use my email for work. That is undisputed. It clearly wasn't the best choice. And I take responsibility for that decision. I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead of 2.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone. Okay, in full disclosure,
BlackBerry.
and a BlackBerry. I have an iPad, a mini iPad, an iPhone, and a BlackBerry. I believe I have met all of my responsibilities, and the server will remain private. In order to be as cooperative as possible, we have turned over the server. They can do whatever they want to with the server to figure out what's there or what's not there.
But not only did they not clean the server with a cloth, as she glibly told our own Ed Henry, but they actually used bleach pit to make sure, as Trey Gowdy said, that God couldn't find those emails, some 33,000. When you look at the evolution and yet a new excuse tonight, what are your thoughts?
Listen, I'm a civilian, and I just think the American people deserve a lot better than this. I mean, it's disgusting. You see that whole train. You see the lies. You see the deception. You see the lies to Congress. You see the lies to the Department of Justice. Right? I mean, it's really disgusting. The American people deserve better than Sean. I think that's exactly why my father's running. You know, I mean, you see the corruption down in Washington. You see the amount of money that the Hillary Clinton, that the Clinton Foundation took in, the amount of money that they've profited off of government. American people.
I've never seen anyone enrich themselves
in this kind of.
What are your other takeaways here? Because on Libya, it got short shrift in a little bit, because before there was 600 requests. During, she was arguing about what our rescuers should be wearing, and after were the lies. Then it's the Iranian deal. Then it's her answer on the VA. Well, VA corruption still exists today, and they're not waiting 6 days. I think your dad said 6 days. No, they've waited years. People have died because they had 2 sets of lists, and bureaucrats got their bonuses based on creating the second list, which is corruption at the highest level at the expense of our brave men and women.
So the fundamental difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump is this, and you can't get it in 1 hour town hall forum tonight, Sean. It's that he's out there giving policy speeches every day. What did he do today? He went down to Philadelphia, went to the Union League, and gave this military preparedness speech on the day that he also is giving Commander-in-Chief. She didn't do that. So if you want to know what his full plan is as Commander-in-Chief, go read that speech. If you want to know what his plan is on middle-class tax relief, on law enforcement, on communities of color, on defeating radical Islamic terrorists, on education tomorrow. I mean, we're going to have Obamacare coming out. In other words, at least you can see Veterans Reform Act, 10-point plan. She doesn't do this.
The liberal media, I can tell already, is fixated on, well, Donald Trump said that he's questioning the general, saying he knows more about ISIS. What's your response to that?
No, I think it's crazy. I think my father's exact point has been the generals have been handcuffed. And I said it before.
That's how I interpreted it as well.
Has been handcuffed, and so have law enforcement across the country, and so have our border patrol across the country. You need to give them the tools that they need to succeed. They've been asking for the tools, and they've been denied those tools. We have amazing military. We have the best military in the world. We have the leaders there to beat ISIS. ISIS isn't. ISIS is a force.
But the key is Obama, Kerry, and Clinton don't listen to the generals.
That's right. And he mentioned all 3 of them. In fairness to him, I hope people will full clip, Eric and Sean, because what Mr. Trump said was, Matt Lauer said, do you have a problem with the military? You questioned it. He said, no, I respect the military. It's President Obama and the leadership that has.
We're going to get into that and play it in full.
He took on Kerry later on, too. But look, the polls are tightening. I think the Clinton folks are getting nervous. And why are the polls tightening? They called Donald Trump unfit and unpresidential. So you know what's happened? He shows that he's presidential. He goes to Mexico. He's
Mexico, Baton Rouge, Detroit,
you name it.
Philly today, yeah.
Now, America, what's her greatest liability? Her greatest liability is people think she lies for a living. What's happened to that? That's only gotten worse. They made a mistake.
Right. Guys, good to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. And joining us now here with Reaction, host of War Stories, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. Colonel North, I think you know a thing or two about radical Islamic terrorism. And you know something about fighting a war, 58,000 brave Americans. You fought in that war. You have multiple Purple Hearts that were given you in that war. If you hear a presidential candidate glibly say, oh, I made a mistake sending you there, and it's imperative we learn from the mistake, if you're the father or mother of one of those dead soldiers, airmen, Marines, Navymen, as Obama would say, Navy corpsmen, my question to you is, I don't think I'd like that answer one bit. I'd be angry.
Well, I'm one of those, as is my brother, my next younger brother, who was sent to war by Lyndon Johnson, who made a terrible mistake and then didn't run again for re-election because of it. And Richard Nixon brought us home with the intention of winning the war. Now, look, the national security of this country and its strategy, its budget, its military end strength, its equipment buys, all of that, which were raised peripherally by Matt Lauer tonight, all have to be based on what I would call a cascade of risk, from the greatest risk to the least. And that requires we know our adversaries and the threats posed. Did anybody hear Mrs. Clinton talk about radical Islamic terror tonight? I didn't.
I didn't hear that either. I mean, she spent a lot of time having to explain herself on her email. Now, she says she can be trusted after corrupting national security and compromising it. I know of a case because I interviewed the mother, her son, who innocently sent classified information will be spending 2 years in jail. One instance. One instant.
I would point out that I was indicted for altering, removing, and destroying U.S. government classified documents, and therefore aiding and abetting. The actual charge was aiding and abetting the obstruction of Congress. Now, mercifully, I was exonerated. But at the end of the day, that's exactly what she did. I simply point out that there is a truly different standard for those of us who serve in the armed forces and most of us who serve in government, and the treatment that Mrs. Clinton is being given by the Justice Department.
What did you think, and this didn't get enough play tonight, and I think it really should have, is I want to go back to Benghazi, because, you know, at this point, what difference does it make was Hillary's answer? But I think what's really imperative here, there were 600 separate individual requests for security before the incident happened. Remember, they were watching it in real time. The Brits had left. The Red Cross had left. The incident's happening. They're watching it, and she's negotiating with her team. She's the highest-ranking cabinet official at the table, and she's negotiating whether or not we need permission from Libya and what uniforms our brave men and women that are going to rescue them and risk their lives should be wearing.
Ever since
and then they
this
lied
terrible
afterwards.
event, ever since this terrible event, I have said the crimes that were committed before, during, and after Benghazi are the things that really she ought to be held to account for. They did nothing to prepare for what always will be. Listen, it's just a few days away. 9/11 will always be a terror target because it's a holiday for them. It's a great victory for them.
Such a good point.
And so 9/11 was, no preparations were made. When it was happening, nothing was done about it. And afterwards, they had to lie to cover up their tracks.
All right, Colonel, we got to let you go. Safe home, my friend. Always good to see you.
Appreciate you, buddy.
And coming up at tonight's forum, Trump and Clinton, they both laid out their plans to defeat ISIS. When we come back, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Lieutenant General Mike Flynn are here with reaction. Then later, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, he says the liberal American media is, quote, erecting a demon by protecting Hillary Clinton from scrutiny. We're going to have part 2 of my interview with Assange. That's coming up later as we continue tonight right here on Hannity. Welcome back tonight. Now, earlier, both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump talked about the rise of ISIS at the Commander-in-Chief Forum. Let's take a look.
Part of the problem that we've had is we go in, we defeat somebody, and then we don't know what we're doing after that. Always said, take the oil. One of the benefits we would have had if we took the oil, ISIS would not have been able to take oil and use that oil to fuel themselves. If I win, I don't want to broadcast to the enemy exactly what my plan is.
We have to defeat ISIS. That is my highest counterterrorism goal. And we've got to do it with air power. We've got to do it with much more support for the Arabs and the Kurds. We are not putting ground troops into Iraq ever again, and we're not putting ground troops into Syria.
Here with reaction, author of Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, as well as the author of The Field of Fight, How We Can Win the Global War Against Radical Islam and Its Allies, retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. General Flynn, I think it's wise not to give details. You don't telegraph what you're going to do, especially if you're fighting an enemy like ISIS. Obama and Hillary, they told the world, well, we're pulling out on this date. Good, we'll wait it out.
And we have this many troops going in. Sean, we have got to stop being what I describe as the best enemies in the world. We continuously telegraph every single move we are going to make, whether we're going to take troops out or whether we're going to put troops in. I mean, we have to stop doing that.
Were you at all offended? Because the liberal media, this is where they're going with this. They're going to ignore the fact that she made a mistake that resulted in 5,000 plus dead Americans and many others injured. But
I was stunned
when he talked about the generals, my interpretation was, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that the generals have not been given the ability to do their job, and the only generals that stuck around were the people that would say yes.
Yeah, it's
is that
not
true, or is that fair? Is that inaccurate?
I will tell you, Donald Trump has enormous respect for our military. He has enormous respect for the leaders that we have in our military that are serving today. What he knows is that the decisions that have been made, the incredibly poor judgment on decisions to pull out of Iraq that led to the rise of ISIS. I mean, we really haven't talked about Libya. The decision to go into Libya was can be solely placed on Hillary Clinton. And Libya is a disaster. It's a non-nation state now. So and ISIS and Al Qaeda are running around.
Libya is deeper than that. I was just talking about that. I mean, 600 specific requests denied before it happened.
Right.
Literally, while we're watching in real time.
She said something tonight, Sean, I'm sorry. She said something tonight that no one died in Libya. 4 Americans died in Libya, to include, tonight she said.
General, with all due respect, at this point, what difference does it make?
Well,
I'm quoting her.
Yes, I know you are. But this is about judgment. And what we saw tonight and what we've seen in the last couple of years, I mean, the last decade, is just the incredibly poor judgment. And I like to hear people talk about winning and how we are going to win.
Dr. Gorka, that brings up a great point here, because she's saying we were wrong in Iraq. Oh, sorry about all you people that died and all you people that lost your legs and limbs and bled on the battlefield to win Mosul, Ramadi, Fallujah, Tikrit, and Baghdad. Sorry, oops, mistake. Then they pull out. Then they create the vacuum for ISIS, but it's bigger than that. Then you got an Iranian deal, as we have discussed, that gives the mullahs, the #1 state sponsor of terror, all this money to spin their centrifuges and build nuclear weapons. Then you've got, of course, Libya, which the general is talking about. You know, at what point does she have to bear responsibility for all of these decisions being so destructive and so wrong?
Sean, don't hold your breath on that one. It's not going to happen. This is the Teflon Don of national security. She's never going to take responsibility for the disastrous Iraqi policy, the Libya policy, the Syria policy. The general is absolutely right. It is a failure to have judgment. They're not interested in national security, Sean. They're interested in politics. Again, what are they doing? They're telegraphing our moves.
What about when Trump said generals have been fired, reduced to rubble? In other words, how was your interpretation of that? Because mine is very different than what I'm hearing on other networks.
Look, the general knows better than anybody else, but as somebody who works very closely with the military, in the last 7.5 years, the General Officer Corps, the Flag Corps, has become very politicized. If you don't agree with the White House, you could find yourself in the kind of place that General Petraeus. Yes,
General,
absolutely.
General, I think I know one right here. Didn't that happen to you?
I mean, yeah. I mean, let's be very
this is an important
honest.
Story. You were a contrarian.
Yeah, very much so.
And what happened?
I mean, to me, I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here today. So
I'm stuck with you,
yeah,
Hannity.
I'm stuck with you, Hannity.
Obviously,
that's right.
my life has sunk to a new level.
But this is very serious. This is very serious, because what Dr. Gorka is talking about, and I know. Inside of our military, there is great frustration. There is. I mean, you don't, and the polls of how many of our military support Donald Trump is not a mistake. I mean, this is a big deal.
Here's a tough question, because you're on the inside. Yeah. Is it true that our generals know that there's no hope of getting through to Obama, and he's going to do it, he damn well pleases anyway?
Now, nothing's going to change. Nothing will change.
And they know that. The generals
they know that. I mean, they know that. And nothing's going to change. You know, here's what I would tell you, and I would tell the American public. There is no enemy that is unbeatable. I mean, we know how to beat these guys. We can beat these guys. And there's no ideology better than the American ideology, the American, idea, our way of life.
I want to pick that up when we get back, because I think we've got to rethink. I know Donald Trump laid out a 10-point plan today.
Yep.
Don't we have to rethink how we approach war? Yeah. We can't send kids in Humvees that are not even up armored. Yeah. Going door to door when we should be building the technology, the new advanced method of warfare. And I think that's missing. We'll take a break. More with Dr. Gorka, Lieutenant General Flynn right after the break. Then WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange broke news right here last night by revealing that he could release new documents about Hillary as soon as next week. We'll have part 2 of that interview and much more straight ahead.
Have you lost faith in the military commanders?
I have great faith in the military. I have great faith in certain of the commanders, certainly, but I have no faith in Hillary Clinton or the leadership. You look at what's happened, and, when she comes in and starts saying, oh, I would have done this, I would have... She's been there for 30 years. We need change, Matt. We have to have it, and we have to have it fast.
And he reiterated no faith in Obama or the generals working with Obama, because he's not listening to them anyway. Here with us, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. I want to put emphasis on this. You disagreed with Obama. You were pushed aside. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, I write about
so
it.
So the good generals are kicked out.
I mean, part of this is that it's this whole notion of the ideology, the radical Islamist ideology that we know, and those of us in the intelligence community, those of us in the military know this is what we're facing. We've been fighting them. I've sat across these guys in interrogations. I know exactly what I'm talking about here. What Donald Trump said tonight is that he has enormous respect for those that are serving in the military.
He said that repeatedly, and that's being ignored by the media.
The American public are not that dumb, Sean.
So this is very key to me, though. You had a contrarian view. You believe we can defeat ISIS. You have a plan. Dr. Gorka has a plan, but they wouldn't listen to you, and you're out.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing.
So what does that? Who does that leave?
Yeah, well, the part of the problem is that inside of our military right now, I know that their hands are tied. I mean, it's like the Border Patrol that has come out and said, "Hey, we support Donald Trump because these are law enforcement and military professionals."
Hands are tied.
Their hands are tied. I mean, come on.
He's the commander-in-chief.
We're talking about ISIS, an enemy that can be beaten. No enemy is unbeatable.
All right, let me bring Dr. Gorka in. His story, if you don't mind me using you, General, here, is crucial to Trump's comments here. And it puts context and texture to the entire answer. And if his hands were tied and he's thrown out for being contrarian, that tells me Obama's not listening to anybody but his own arrogant, radical self. And that's where the problem comes in.
Sean, it's the echo chamber, okay? It's very important to listen to what happened to the general. The general was the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the highest ranking military intelligence professional in America, who was never invited to meet the commander-in-chief. This is the man who revolutionized our intelligence gathering in Afghanistan when General Flynn was responsible in Afghanistan for intelligence. You need to listen to what he's saying. The viewers need to understand what the general said is absolutely true. There is no enemy America cannot defeat. But we have to have a president who believes we are at war and wants to defeat our enemies.
But that didn't come up tonight, Dr. Gorka. I didn't hear Hillary challenged on why she can't utter the phrase radical Islam. I think that's crucial if you're going to fight them, right?
It was a dog and pony show, Sean. You have to look at the Philadelphia speech. Donald Trump's Philadelphia speech laid down the reality. The cuts in the Army, the cuts in the Navy.
Let me ask this question. If Hillary is going to admit that wars are politicized, oops, made a mistake, sorry your kid's dead, and we do the same thing in Vietnam, does America need to invest strategically and tactically in the notion that we're not going to send kids door to door like we did in Iraq without up-armored Humvees getting their legs blown off or blown to smithereens? And is there a new way to fight wars without putting these kids on the ground? General.
Yeah, so I would love to hear Sebastian Gorka's answer on this too. But so the answer, short answer is yes. The longer answer is we have to give the resources that our commanders need.
And the sequester.
And in terms of building up our military readiness, I mean, people should go and listen to what Donald Trump said today in Philadelphia.
All right, we're running out of time. Dr. Gorka, do we need strategic tactical shifts to ensure the safety of brave men and women when politicians are going to say, oops, sorry, your kid's dead, I made a mistake?
Read Field of Fight by the general. Check out my book, Defeating Jihad. But most important of all, the rules of engagement have to be changed. Well, our guys are handicapped right now.
All right, guys, thank you all for being with us. General, always good to see you. Dr. Gorka, thank you. Coming up, part two, my interview with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Last night, he revealed that he may release more documents pertaining to Hillary Clinton as early as next week. I asked him how significant that material is. He'll give us that answer next. And then later, we'll have more reaction to tonight's Commander-in-Chief Forum. We'll check in with A.J. Delgado, Lisa Booth, as we continue tonight here on Hannity. And welcome back to Hannity. So last night, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange made news on this program when he announced that he'd reveal and release several batches of documents related to Hillary Clinton, possibly as early as next week. Here's part two of my interview with him. Let me go to the Hillary issue for a second. You did refer to or liken her to a demon, which I found amusing. But then you went on to say the American liberal press is falling all over themselves to defend Hillary Clinton, erecting a demon that is going to put nooses around everyone's neck as soon as she wins the election, which is almost certainly what she's going to do, meaning if she wins. I don't think anyone can accurately predict right now which way this election is going to go. That's my own personal opinion. What did you mean by that?
Well, it's a bit taken out of context by critics like the New York Times. I wasn't talking about Hillary Clinton as a person, but rather the climate that they are erecting. It is a demon, that climate. If Hillary Clinton is elected, then they have legitimized a climate of calling opposition leaders Russian agents, calling critical press Russian agents. Her campaign team has done it both for Mr. Trump, for us, for the Greens candidate, Jill Stein, and for The Intercept, another small investigative publisher in the United States. They are legitimizing that climate. When the New York Times is a kind of standard bearer of the liberal press, says that's an okay thing to do for a ruling party candidate to come out and say that the opposition leaders and the press are foreign agents in order to turn around a domestic scandal, that's a really serious problem.
You know, I give you more credit than those in the liberal press. For example, I'm a commentator. I am a talk show host. I openly tell this audience I have strong conservative opinions, but I would expect objective journalists to be doing a lot of what you're doing. And you're right, I think they're unwilling to do that because they've got a political agenda in play. You have talked at length about other information that you have that you will be releasing to the American public prior to the election in November. Can you give us any insight about that information? Do you think it will have a dramatic impact on the electoral results?
I don't know about the electoral results. You know, I'm quite cynical about politics, or skeptical about politics, as I'm sure you probably are as well, Sean. Things can happen in interesting ways. I do think that the material that we have, that we're working on around the clock, is significant, and it's up to people to look at it and run with it. Now, I'm sure Fox News will run with some of that, but in the DNC leak, yes, we saw the resignation of 5 of the top DNC officials, including the president. But did the New York Times run with it? No. Did MSNBC run with it? No. In fact, MSNBC, Politico, and NBC were exposed as conspiring with the DNC to subvert Bernie Sanders' campaign. But people in the United States came to our website. Some good journalists also came, and it was the public that really took it up and pushed it. So I hope that will happen again.
You said you were going to release more information before the election on November 8th. If you had to maybe rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being most significant, how significant is it?
Well, there's not just one type of piece of information. We have thousands and thousands of records. So each 100 records gives you a story. So you have to kind of understand each story, and that is a lot of work to format it, to verify it, to put it in particular batches to be released. WikiLeaks is tax deductible in the United States. If people want to try and help us do that, we're a small outfit that has been attacked by the Obama administration for 6 years now in an investigation that has been condemned by Human Rights Watch, by the UN, even by the ACLU.
You have said that if you had information on any candidate, you feel the public has a right to know. Do you have any information, any batches, if you will, on Donald Trump?
We have information which touches on the Republican Party's campaign. In assessing that information, we will publish it, of course. But, you know, Donald Trump he makes very controversial statements. He doesn't have a history of being in government.
He doesn't use email. You know that, right? So he doesn't use email personally.
I'm sorry?
Donald Trump does not use email personally.
All right, probably a wise choice. Seeing how the election is going on.
Let me ask you one last question on the morals and ethics of this. I actually do applaud, you've exposed a lot about our government that I am appreciative of as a citizen, because I think there have been things that have been going on that we need to know about, and I hope it wakes people up. Where do you draw a line in terms of the right to citizens, private citizens, or, you know, people even in the public to have privacy?
Well, look, we publish information from political parties and governments. We're not interested in the information from private individuals unless they're billionaires or trying to manipulate or drive the political system in some way. So people don't need to worry about WikiLeaks being interested in that. But for these big corrupt organizations, you know, dodgy politicians and so on, we just say what they say. If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. What's their problem in the public knowing the truth? Because that's all we publish. There's no allegation that we haven't been completely accurate.
That's 100% true. Like somebody like George Soros would be on your radar. He's trying to influence elections. He's trying to impact the political process.
We will be publishing quite a lot of information about George Soros. It has already been published elsewhere, but in an unusable form. That's part of what we do as well, is take records that are extremely hard to use, like some of the State Department records on Clinton, for example. You can't search them properly. So we create this wonderful library of how modern institutions actually behave across the world, in the United States, in other countries as well. We've published 650,000 documents on Russia, most of them critical, 2.3 million about Bashar al-Assad and Syria, including even his personal emails.
And coming up, we have more reaction to tonight's Commander-in-Chief Forum. We'll check in with AJ Delgado, Lisa Booth. They're here next as we continue. Glad you're with us on Hannity. And welcome back to Hannity, here with more reaction to tonight's Commander-in-Chief Forum. Washington Examiner contributor Lisa Booth, Trump campaign senior advisor, our friend AJ Delgado. All right, what are the headlines from tonight's event from your perspective, not the liberal media perspective?
I thought it was an amazingly poor performance from Hillary Clinton.
Why?
A surprisingly bad one, and which is kind of has me wondering now how she'll perform in the debates. She faltered badly under pressure, Sean. She honestly seemed as though she was going to have some sort of emotional breakdown when he started questioning her about the emails. She knows she's lying. She knows she's been caught lying. She knows she broke the law.
By the way, she extended the lie tonight. We got a new answer.
A new lie, yes.
We got a new lie tonight. So
yeah, when do we not? It seems they come in every day.
Look, I could play Trey Gowdy again and again, but Trey Gowdy interviewing Comey, no, that's a lie. No, that's a lie. No, that's a lie. I mean, it's pretty profound, right?
Well, we've heard a million different iterations of the classified information. It wasn't, I didn't send classified information. Okay, well, I sent classified information, but I didn't, you know, I didn't really know what the C meant, right? I thought it meant it was alphabetized. But I mean, come on. Hillary Clinton, I believe Donald Trump is right when he says Hillary Clinton has disqualified herself from being commander-in-chief. The reality is, let's look at the woman's actions. She reportedly spent $140,000 out of her own pocket to set up a private email server, deleted tens of thousands of emails using BleachBit, software
BleachBit, my favorite part, because Ed Henry goes, did you wipe the server clean like with like a cloth, Ed? And they're using BleachBit.
Sean, that's obstruction of justice.
Jesus can't find it. That's how what BleachBit is for.
Yeah, well, and not even that.
By the way, you're an attorney and you went to Harvard Law, correct?
You don't.
I've heard of that.
Isn't that intent, criminal intention? Isn't
they
it 101?
had a subpoena and they destroyed evidence. It doesn't get any clearer than that. And Sean, I have a homework assignment for everybody. Go Google.
I don't like to do homework.
This is an easy one. Please go Google the name Brian. I want to make sure I get it right. Brian Nishimura. Brian Nishimura was a naval reservist who pretty much did what Hillary Clinton did.
Oh, you're right.
He was fined and he can no longer have security clearance.
Now, Julian Assange is on my radio show for an hour tomorrow, but I'm also interviewing this week a guy who's going off to jail because he sent out classified material.
Right.
Okay, one time. Once.
Well, she
2
should
years
be in a
jail.
trial room right now, in a courtroom, not running for president. She's not just unqualified, she's disqualified.
Well, and it's also the fact, other information that we learned from the FBI putting out some of those documents, the document dump prior to Labor Day, is the fact that her aides quite literally smashed phones with hammers. The fact, despite the fact
By the way,
she told
there wasn't multiple devices. There were 13 BlackBerries.
She said there was one. She said that she used one for convenience.
Yeah.
Look,
13.
So there's no question anymore if she was hiding something. You don't take those actions
AJ,
if you aren't trying to hide something.
13 more in the green room. Will you go bust that up with a hammer someplace? It's my iPhone. I pay a lot for it. Just bust it up with a hammer. Just hammer away.
That's not weird at all.
Beat the crap out of it and erase it for me.
I could be a fun segment.
Do you have any bleach bit? Anybody?
Apparently it's very expensive.
I've
So you don't
never
spend
had
the money if you have something to hide.
I've never tried to hide something to that degree. Sorry.
Why can't you just, if it's really about yoga, a wedding, and a funeral, why don't you just go whip and delete it like everybody
Or
else?
hand them all over like she said she did.
Oh, that would be
and it turns out
legal thing.
17,000.
And unless she was doing
33.
yoga in
All right, I gotta
Benghazi, we know that she's lied because she said that she had turned over her work-related
We got a
emails.
break?
Not the case.
When we come back, we need your help.
Because, in part, because of her vote in the war in Iraq. She lost the primary to Barack Obama in 2008, where he pounded her about the war in Iraq vote mercilessly. And now you've got Donald Trump being able to take the superior position to her on this. He's saying, I was against the Iraq war, and I said we should have taken the oil and gotten out of there before we got out of there. And so she doesn't have a lot of ground here. And by the way, it's not like it's just the Iraq war that's part of her Secretary of State and U.S. Senate record. What about Libya? What about Syria? What about the Russian reset? What about Benghazi? And look, I think this election, Sean, we're starting to see it's complex people and very simple ideas. You either are with the 70% of Americans who say, I want to go in a different direction, I want change in leadership, or you're not. You either are with the 30% of America who thinks she tells the truth, or you're not. This is very simple.
At 37% of Americans, 37% negative. We're on the wrong track. I think this is key. Eric, I want to get to you in this forum tonight, and very specifically, I made a mistake. 5,000 Americans.
Faith in certain of the commanders, certainly, but I have no faith in Hillary Clinton or the leadership. You look at what's happened, and, you know, when she comes in and starts saying, oh, I would have done this, I would have... She's been there for 30 years. We need change, Matt. We have to have it, and we have to have it fast.
Now, this comes as a brand new NBC News poll shows that Donald Trump has a 19-point lead over Hillary Clinton among registered active duty military and veteran voters. Here with reaction from the Trump Organization, Eric Trump and Donald Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. You know, I'm watching media coverage. Everybody's getting it wrong. The moment of the night was this.
I think that the decision to go to war in Iraq was a mistake. And I have said that my voting to give President Bush that authority was, from my perspective, my mistake. I also believe.
And thanks, Megan. And this is a Fox News alert. Welcome to Hannity. Tonight, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton participated in a presidential forum earlier tonight. Now, Clinton went first, where she was asked about a private email server scandal. And once again, well, she came up with a new excuse, spinning the fact that the FBI found it held classified information. Now we got a new excuse. Let's take a look at it.
Classified material has a header which says top secret, secret, confidential. Nothing, and I will repeat this, and this is verified in the report by the Department of Justice. None of the emails sent or received by me had such a header.
As for Donald Trump, he was asked about the military under President Obama's leadership and used the opportunity to explain how he'd take a much different approach than Hillary Clinton if, in fact, he becomes the commander-in-chief.
Have you lost faith in the military commanders?
I have great faith in the military. I have great faith.
Americans died, many more injured, then created the vacuum for ISIS. And I know people are critical. Oh, your father was critical of some of the generals. Well, I don't think Obama's listening to the generals. That's a separate issue. But seriously, 5,000 people? Oops, I'm sorry. We've got to learn from it.
We're sitting there with General Flynn tonight. It's amazing. I mean, the thing he said, it was very, very clear. We've been handcuffed. We've been totally handcuffed. We're not allowed to do our jobs. It's no different than the Border Patrol. They've been handcuffed. They can't do their jobs. And it's not just the lives, and the lives are the most tragic thing in the entire world. It is so sad. Thousands and thousands of lives. It's also trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. And I think my father's point is, what do we have to show for it at this point, Sean? I mean, what do we have to show for it? We have 3, 4, 5 different countries that are in total ruin. We have civil war, we have anarchy, we have ISIS. I mean, you can't flip on the TV anymore without seeing another ISIS attack either in our country or around the world. We have pandemonium in the Middle East. Her foreign policy destroyed the Middle East. It destabilized every single one of those nations, and it's proven
that it is imperative that we learn from the mistakes like after action reports are supposed to do. And so we must learn what led us down that path so that it never happens again.
She voted for the war. She voted to pull out early. It created a vacuum for ISIS to emerge with the financial backing of the oil that they got out of Iraq. Wow. Okay, Kellyanne, if you are the mother of one of, what, up to 5,000 people that were killed, and here's the woman that wants to be president, oh, I made a mistake, but it's important that we learn from the mistake. You have a dead child. You have a child that lost their limbs, have been disfigured as a result of her decision. Wow. I can't believe that's not front and center on every TV show tonight.
But that's not on her. Well, thanks for making it front and center in your show, and thanks for having the Trump campaign here. That's not what's on her mind. What's on her mind right now, Sean, is that she's on the verge of losing 2 consecutive presidential races.